Good evening. Welcome to the latest live stroke preview show from Last Bell Boxing. Joined as always by regulars. Harrison, how are you, mate?
Well, fantastic, Andy. Very festive time of year. Very good spirits all around, and I'm looking forward to the boxing this weekend.
Yeah, great time of year apart from the weather, eh?
Oh yeah. I'd hate to be bald.
Sean, welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, not quite as festive as Harrison there, but I think that's just the nature of working in sales this time of year, trying to get people to buy stuff.
I was going to ignore that comment from Harrison, but I've got to say something.
Go on.
Hey,
Grinch.
No. I can't even come back on that because I've been going out this week and it's been absolutely Baltic with this bald patch. Woolly hats don't even work. Do you know what I mean?
No,
there's nothing like proper hair on your head, is there?
You could wear 3 pairs of socks this time of year. You're still in the depths, aren't you?
No, that's right, mate. Right, lads, let's crack straight on. We've got quite a mixture on the show tonight. Everyone that joins us, drop your comments in the sidebar. We'll read them out as we go along. Might need a little bit of help from you boys on that as I'm doing the bits and bobs. So shout up if you see a comment and I don't notice it. First and foremost, lads, we'll talk about last weekend's Queensbury card on TNT. Really interesting card. I enjoyed it. We spoke about this last Thursday about it being a really good trade fight, really good trade card. Sorry, and I really enjoyed the Bentley fight and the Sam Noakes fight. I thought they were interesting, and then obviously we got that big shot from David Adelaide and the big knockout from Lawrence Okoli. So let's go straight in with the Denzel Bentley fight. Obviously, for anyone that's not seen it, Denzel Bentley beat Brad Pauls on a unanimous decision. Cards read 117, 110, 116, 111, and 115, 112. That was for the British, European, and WBO Intercontinental middleweight titles. Harrison, I'll come to you first. You've seen the caption I've put there. Does this just show Denzel Bentley's level?
Present, I think it does, yeah, because we like we spoke about last week, how Denzel Bentley has had world title opportunities before. He's been in with much considerably better level with Brad Pauls, and no disrespect to him, a fine British level fighter in his own right. But I think that we came out of the 12 rounds possibly a little bit underwhelmed by the performance we've seen from both men, maybe more so Denzel Bentley. Look, he boxed really well. The best he's boxed probably in his last 3 or 4 fights, given the level and everything that he was at. But you just would have liked to have seen Bentley put more of a statement in there if he was going to, get back into the 160-pound picture a little bit better, because the division's now in a position where it's going to move on. You've got Hamza Shiraz, hopefully he's going to become world champion in February. Alan Kunalai is just an absolute monster, and you just think if Denzel Bentley got in with any fighter of a world caliber level right now, he wouldn't stand up to the test, in my opinion. That being said, he boxed well. He did some things very, very nicely, but yeah, for the most part, it was just a bit sour, I think, is the best way to put it.
I think what we saw, I mentioned this on the show last week, that with Denzel Bentley, you just never know. He's got to be in the right frame of mind, but when he is, I think he's world level. Brad Pauls, I think you've been a bit harsh saying British level. I actually think he's European level.
Yeah, he's got the scope to be, absolutely.
But it's one of them. Denzel Bentley was just on it. I saw an interview with him fight week, and he was just basically saying he's got the bit between his teeth again. He had those 2 quick knockouts, and that probably put him in the right frame of mind. Sean, do you agree with Harrison? Do you think Denzel Bentley, this is his level European now at this stage in his career?
I think for the moment in time, yes, but that's not to say he couldn't go on to be a world level fighter. I think, as you said there, Andy, it's about Denzel Bentley's mindset and what's going on between his ears, really, how he approaches the fights. There's times where he looks brilliant, where you think, yes, he can mix at that level. For me, he probably lacks a bit of punch power to be truly world class, if I'm being honest. If he could somehow get that, and then there's no reason to say he can't mix at that level at some point.
Yeah, he's you've hit a good point there. To stand a chance against the big boys, you've got to have some pop, haven't you? You've got to get. I'm sure he gets the respect in there, but you've got to stop him in the tracks a little bit, and maybe that's something he doesn't quite have in his arsenal.
Yeah.
Time will tell. Brad Pauls will come again. You know, he's a young man. He'll come again. Really interesting to see what happens with a British level now. I'm not sure whether Denzel will keep hold of that British title. I don't think he's going to want to be hanging around defending against the up and comers in the division. But we'll see. Moving swiftly on, Sam Noakes went in against Ryan Walsh, winning on unanimous decision points. Card showed 119, 109, 120, 108, 120, 108, 2 cards. That was for the British Commonwealth, WBO International Lightweight titles. We had a question, didn't we, last week, whether Ryan Walsh had one last fight left in him, whether he was going to come flying out the gates, and what Sam Noakes would do if that happened early on in the fight. We got our answer straight away. Sean, I'll come to you first. How calm and collected was Sam Noakes in this fight?
Yeah, he was absolutely brilliant. He done everything he should have, to be honest. I think I saw a few predictions of people having Sam Noakes by stoppage, but personally, I never see a world he would have stopped Ryan Walsh. He's just that sort of gritty and tough fighter. But as for Sam Noakes, it was almost punch perfect. 120 points he got on 2 of the cards. He couldn't have done any more.
Harrison, Ryan Walsh has been a quality operator. Was it a bit sad to see the way that fight panned out?
Yeah, see, I get where you're coming from, and I think last week when we spoke about the preview for this fight, there was a little bit of maybe heart over heads in just the idea that Ryan Walsh maybe could have a bit more of a a final bow out, but ultimately we also called the fight right. We said that Ryan Walsh was likely to come in there early, give it a right good go, and it was a case of how well can Sam Noakes maintain himself throughout 12 rounds, and the answer was excellently. Sam Noakes, this is another good step up for him. He's a really, really top-class fighter. He's definitely above the British level that he's at. Shame he's in the lightweight division, unfortunately, which is at its absolute peak at the minute. It's just a stacked division from world level right down to our domestic scene. And he's going to have to bide his time, I think, a little bit. And he doesn't want to get in too many of these type of fights because Ryan Walsh, there's plenty of guys like that are going to present risk. Maxie Hughes, I think, might be a name we see somewhere down the line for Sam Noakes. It seems very viable that that's the type of route that he'll go down. But you've got to just give credit to Sam Noakes here. I think he boxed exceptionally. The last 3 or 4 rounds, it was like really, really one-sided. There was nearly like I don't score 10-8s very often in the sake of like no knockdowns, but there was some unbelievably just one decisive rounds and onwards for Sam Noakes, and probably the end of Ryan Walsh's career at that level.
Unfortunately, I have to agree. I think Ryan Walsh will know that as well. He's a warrior, wears his heart on his sleeve, but I think he'll see. He's not going to be one of these fighters, mate, that's going to want to drop down levels and struggle against anyone of a lower level than Sam Noakes. I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Right. Moving swiftly on to what ended up being a very, very quick finish. David Adelaide knocks out Solomon Dakras in the first round. This was for the English heavyweight title. Let's have your reaction from that, Harrison.
We said about how David Adelaide had been off for well over a year off the back of that Wardley fight, and likewise had probably quite a lot to prove to himself as well as he did to the British public. And you looked at Solomon Dakras, who, albeit hadn't done anything wrong so far in his pro career, also hadn't done anything where you've seen him as like an outright favourite for this fight and someone that could just blow Adelaide apart. And we got a poleaxe opposite to that, because David Adelaide, brilliance, like really, really impressive victory and one that he needed. Fabio Wardley's not going to hold on to that British title for very long, is he? Because he's too good and he's going to go above the level. So trying to find the fighters that are going to fit into the next generation that build that. Surely David Adelaide has just put himself right in contention to fight for that in the next 2 or 3 fights. He may defend this English once or twice, but he was fantastic. Yeah, Dakras, just left himself too open. Like, we're only analysing 2 minutes of boxing here because that's all there was. But I thought that Dacres was pulling his punches a little bit. He had his hands quite considerably low for heavyweight as well. Just his guard wasn't good, and Adelaide was just on him from second one. And that was an absolutely monster left hook that he threw. You're only surprised Dacres was able to get up briefly from it. So, yeah, fantastic from Adelaide, and there's some exciting prospects. He's right back in the domestic scene now.
I think there was no care from David Adelaide for Solomon Dacre's power, which probably tells you where Solomon is at the moment. Yeah, I was expecting Solomon to move a lot and throw a lot, sharp jabs, at least for the first few rounds when David would be at his most dangerous. None of that happened. Solomon was very flat-footed. The movement wasn't there. I don't really understand it. I've got to be honest. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next. Sean, David Adelaide, before the fight, was calling out Fraser Clark.
Yeah.
Can you see that happening next?
Potentially. If, as Harrison said, if Fabio Wardley drops the British title, I know Fraser Clark will have to get a win back after the loss, but why not? That would be a great fight, in fact. Johnny Fisher as well. He's got Dave Allen to deal with. But yeah, isn't it? Any of those two will be a good fight for David Adelaide.
Right. Moving swiftly on to a very, very heavy Lawrence Okoli. I was staggered the size that he came in. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's talk about the fight first. He stops Hussein Mohammed in first round KO, and that was for the WBC silver title. What do you make of this, Harrison? Let me give you my opinion first. I'll be absolutely honest with you. I don't like Lawrence Okoli's style. I don't. He's a massive lad, and he put on like 40 pounds, was it? From his or 60 pounds from his previous Bridgerweight fight. I'm not a fan of. I'm just not a fan of his the way he shapes up and the way he throws shots. Everyone's saying he's going to do massive things in the heavyweight division. I'm not convinced he will. I think he's wide open. This flatters in this fight, but that's my opinion. So give me yours.
Right, I've made my mind up on how I'm going to watch Lawrence Okoli fights going forward. So I'm only ever going to watch the first round, because what will happen in that first round is he'll either knock some bloke spark out, because he has got the potential to do that. But if we hear the end of the bell at the first round, we're almost definitely going 12 dangerously boring rounds. He's a very, very enigmatic fighter, to say the least. There's so much in there. There's like just a 2-time world champion, of course there is, but I can never really get fully behind him, if that makes sense. I want to like him so much more than I do. Actually, funnily enough, I went to a fight maybe 2 years ago in Manchester that he was at, and it's the quietest and emptiest I've ever seen the Manchester Arena in my life. There was probably about 4,000 people there in a 22,000 seat arena. Weird, dull atmosphere. People walking out on him like 5-6 rounds in because how boring the fight was. And how can you market yourself as a fighter that's going to be this next massive big thing if you're going to be like that? From the fight itself, like the problem was like we didn't know too much about this Hussein Mohammed before he came in, and I know even less about him now because he wasn't really there to win at any stage. This fight could have gone 1-7 or 10 rounds. The same outcome was going to be likely, of course. And yeah, it's nothing to like get excited about Okoli's start at heavyweight. It's not like when Usyk moved up in the first 2 fights he was fighting Derek Chisora, and that was a big win at the time. This is very much, we need to see Okoli out 2-3 times to adjust to the weight, establish what type of heavyweight he's going to be. Is he going to go back to slick moving and drop some weight, or is he fully invested in being this massive bloke that wants to punch people? I don't even think he knows yet what he wants to do. So time's going to tell, but you can't give that performance anything more than a 5 out of 10, in my opinion, because there's just so many unknowns, isn't there?
Sean, Hussein Mohammed came. He looked like he was invested and very confident in himself right at the very start. He was throwing wild shots, and that was what gave Lawrence Okoli the opportunity in the opening to land that big bomb. Have you learned anything new from Lawrence Okoli with that?
No, and I think that's the thing about it. Really, we didn't learn anything at all, other than he can punch a bit. But we already knew that beforehand. I think with Okoli, as you both have said, he is a hard watch at times. He hasn't particularly got any character about him, I don't think either. When he comes across in interviews and things, other than when he obviously slags off Eddie Hearn. But I I think for him, he's going to struggle to do anything significant in the division, because ultimately, I just think he's going to come across someone that can take his power. If he's the size he is, he'll just sort of gas out and get stopped himself.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how they plan his career going forward and who they put him in with.
I reckon that they're going to put him in with Wilder at some point next year. Now Wilder's confirmed he's going to fight on. I can see them doing that, and of course they had the WBC convention this week as well, where they've sort of lobbied to put Okoli at number 2 or 3, I think. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get some kind of WBC eliminator between Wilder and Okoli.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's actually going to be quite a rapid mandatory, because obviously he's moving up as the world champion from the WBC with the bridgerweight. So
yeah,
the way that their status is,
that's generally what the WBC do, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, in fairness, I actually think it's quite a good incentive. Like, sometimes you might go, how on earth does Okoli deserve a shot at the world title after like 2 or 3 fights? But you know, the only way we're going to see these fighters go multi divisions is if you offer them an incentive to do that. So I don't actually hate the idea that Okoli's third fight at heavyweight is going to be an eliminator to fight Usyk, Fury, whoever the champion is at the time.
Well, if it is, depending on who he fights, we're going to see where he's at, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Is he good enough? Is he good enough after being a 2-weight world champion, or is not?
Next up will be like an Otto Wallen, Joe Joyce status fight, or someone of that level should beat them, and then go on to fight that Wilder or Cabiel, whoever it is at the time, who's going to be the mandatory. That's a good setup.
Could you see him against a Dillian White or a Derek Chisora? I mean, Chisora's already talking about his 50th fight after the next one, and he's thinking about who he wants to because that will be his last fight. He said that. No, I think it will be, mate. I think that's the only reason he's going on, is to make that 5-0. And he's going to want to fight the best possible opponent on that night. Could Lawrence Okoli be that man?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's more likely. I think it's more likely that the Chisora fights him than Dill, because I really don't know what Dill's at the minute. It's a very messy situation. Like, we'll talk about it in a bit, I'm sure. But there's more of a pathway. If Chisora beats Wallen, then yeah, you know, like I said, a Wallen-esque fighter. And obviously, I don't think there's much to split really Chisora and Wallen at the minute. They're not at a very high level, personally. But yeah, it could easily be Chisora. And you've got to think of it this way: Chisora Okoli puts 20,000 bums in the O2. Like 10 times out of 10. So it's a good sales fight as well. Like it's a good domestic appealing fight, that as well.
Okay, watch this space. Moving swiftly on then, boys. Miss GB, Natasha Jonas aims to unify the division this weekend over in Liverpool on a boxer card through Sky. Couple of good fights on this card, including the lady that might fight the winner of this unification in Lauren Price. So let's crack straight on, boys. I'll come to you first, Sean. Natasha Jonas seems to have been ages since Natasha was last out. Probably tells you the state of female boxing at the moment, that it's taken her so long to get out as a world champion.
Yeah, and well, I saw Joe Gallagher sort of lobbying for months, it seems, or annoyed with Ben Shalom that she hasn't been given a date. So it seems, if this wasn't known, which as sort of Gallagher was speaking about, seems that way. It seems kind of rushed and sort of quite forced out of nowhere, to be honest. But in terms of the fight, I think Boxer is sort of positioning him now for her to be beaten by Lauren Price, to be honest. So I expect Natasha Jonas to come through this fight. Then I think they'll be fed to Lauren Price.
Okay, so this obviously, for people that I don't know or haven't seen, Natasha Jonas, IBF champion, will be fighting Ivana Habazin, who's the WBC champion. This is to unify, obviously. Lauren Price has been talked about fighting Natasha Jonas for a while now. I think Natasha's actually come out, Harrison, recently and said she's probably got 3 fights left in her. This one, Lauren Price, and then potentially Michaela Mayer again. And then she said she's done. Now, I don't often like hearing fighters say that about themselves before a fight, but this isn't a case of Natasha feeling sorry for herself. She's just happy with where she is as a fighter. First and foremost, break this fight down for me.
Yeah, this fight specifically, I get the appeal of why Ivana Habazin's got this fight. She won the world title last time out, the WBC edition, and she's looked like a much better fighter since I remember watching the Clarissa Shields fight maybe 3-4 years ago, and that was a washout. But then, obviously, Clarissa is above and beyond basically everybody above Kate Taylor, Chantel Cameron's weights. Like, you go from welterweight upwards, Clarissa Shields just an absolute mile clear of everybody else in and around her, so there's no discredit there. Natasha Jonas should be too good in this landscape. If you go specifically just off the Michaela Mayer fight last time out, which was razor thin, but you'd like to think that Michaela Mayer, and especially after that Sandy Ryan win, controversial win, there's a few girls that seem to just be a little bit better, in my opinion, specifically American and British fighters at the minute. So I like Jonas's chances here to just find an easy title defense and pick up a nice unification. And that should be game, set, and match. I actually remember, so it's the bookend of the year, really, that Jonas has had 2 fights. The first fight was in January. She's having this right at the end of the year. She said after that fight against Michaela Mayer, this was going to be her last year in boxing. And like you just reiterated, you've kind of match made her next 3 fights, which seems very 1, 2, 3 and completely understandable. This now can't be her last year in boxing because she's been so stalled, and it's a real shame to see someone of her quality be removed of chances where she doesn't need to fight in Liverpool. She's a big name anywhere she goes in the country. I've seen her fight in Manchester plenty of times, and she's done brilliant numbers. So it's a real shame. And there's, I'm not here to call promoters and networks out, but, they haven't done a very good job with her, unfortunately. And it's a bit of a waste, in my opinion, to have someone like her just sat on the sidelines waiting. So hopefully she gets the job done here. And then Lauren Price is just such an inevitable fight, isn't it? She will get through her fight pretty easily. And then hopefully Michaela Mayer. You still want to see that Sandy Ryan rematch first, of course, because it could easily be Sandy Ryan that she fights as well.
Yeah.
We'll see how that comes. It's not as if Jonas has to prove herself. She's already beaten Mayer. So, it's just nice to see Natasha Jonas back out, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm a big Natasha Jonas fan. I've got lots and lots and lots of respect for her. She was actually one of the first interviews we ever did on the channel. She gave us a time. I think it was around just after the Katie Taylor fight, maybe. And she was very disappointed in the Katie Taylor fight, and she thought she could have done better. She wanted an immediate rematch. I think she'd still like the Katie Taylor fight, which that's obviously not going to happen now. But it's one of them. I feel for her, mate. She deserves a lot more respect in boxing than she's actually being given in regards to the way people have promoted her. Mm-hmm. She's been a trailblazer in the Team G, in the amateurs. She's done exactly the same. It took her a while to win a world title because she wasn't really given the opportunities. The Terry Harper fight, she should have had a rematch with Terry Harper straight after. That was probably the biggest thing that's disappointed the most in boxing. That fight was scored a draw, wasn't it? And I don't know about you, but I thought Natasha did enough to win that fight.
It was close, wasn't it? Like, it
was very close. Very close.
What you're absolutely right with is it needed an immediate rematch, and that actually would have completely changed Natasha Jonas's career, because I think that would have led to more activity, more networks wanting to take her on, and the fact that didn't happen is just a bit of a shame, really. But it was that whole COVID period that kind of just, doesn't even feel like a real timeline anymore, does it? So it's a real shame, but she deserves to have this big crowd, nice audience on Sky on Saturday, and hopefully she puts a good few bums on seats.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And hopefully she gets the 2 or possibly 3 fights next year to just to crown a career off, mate. She deserves it. She deserves the big fights, and she deserves the big paydays for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'd love to see the Michaela Mayer fight again. I know the Sandy Ryan, Michaela May thing's likely to happen first.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see the Michaela Mayer fight again because I thought that was really razor close as well.
Yeah,
and a lot of people went for Michaela Mayer on that, and I'm sure Natasha would like to put that right, even though she was given the nod on the night. A lot of people have put a bit of shadow on that, saying that Michaela Mayer should have won it, and you can again one of them fights could have gone either way. But yeah, Natasha Jonas needs to be remembered when she does finally hang them gloves up as a real trailblazer behind Katie Taylor. Those two have been the leading lights in female boxing in this country for the last decade.
Yeah.
Sean, do you see Natasha coming through this fight convincingly? And if so, do you think the Lauren Price fight happens next?
Yeah, I think that's the whole reason why Lauren Price is on the undercard, to be honest. I think Natasha Jonas will come through wide on points, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Lauren Price climbing the ring after, and then they all announce it.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you that question. So, seeing as though you brought it up, mate, it's looking like that's the way this has been set up. We'll talk about Lauren Price as fight first. Harrison, she's defending her IBO welterweight title against Bexy Matthews. Is that just a run-of-the-mill win for her?
I mean, unless Colombia is the new home for female welterweight boxers, then probably yeah, because it's very difficult to gauge just how good this lady is. Unfortunately, she's eating up fight week, bless her, which is good to see. Actually, I like when foreign fighters come over and they try to make the most of a situation. She seems to be doing exactly that. So, all the best to her. But if this isn't like a sort of 1 to 1,000 chance that Lauren Price just wins 10 rounds here and gets out the ring as easily as she got in it, then I'd be very, very surprised. IBO title doesn't mean much in any state of boxing, nevertheless, female boxing, it doesn't seem to get you anywhere. But look, Lauren Price has done nothing but impress me since she's turned over. And again, a phenomenal amateur as well. But she hasn't put a foot wrong, and because of the state of the division at the minute, it is very likely she's going to fight for a world title. Sorry, like an actual world title next. And she's a really, really exciting fight. She does a lot of things well. You can tell she's got that amateur about her. Like, she's just so, for someone, she's only had 7-8 fights. She's ultra mature in the ring. I really, really like the way she goes about her business. And she should be winning this handstand, shouldn't she?
Sean, really interesting. The differences between Lauren Price and Natasha Jonas. Lauren Price is full of skill, as Harrison's just said. You can see the pedigree there. My one question against her is power. She throws lots and lots of shots, and she lands clean a lot of times. Doesn't seem to affect any of her opponents. She's only got one stoppage on her record. You don't see as many stoppages in female boxing to get that. But is that the one thing that Natasha Jonas will be fairly happy with, that she can walk through some of Lauren's punches if that fight happens?
Yeah, I think the advantage Lauren Price has there is her boxing skills. So I don't think it'll be just easy for Jonas to sort of walk through and sort of assert her size and dominance on the fight, to be honest. I see comparisons slightly. I mean, it's a bit of a bizarre thing to compare women and men, but to Sonny Edwards, where he didn't have a lot of power, but his boxing skills got him out of that sort of predicament. And I think Lauren Price is the same.
She's not been tested one little bit in any of her fights so far, Harrison, has she?
No, and that might but the thing is she going to get that here on Saturday night as well? Probably not.
Probably not.
And let's say, like, I know this is like none of this has actually happened yet because they both got to win their fights on Saturday and it's got to be made, etc., etc. But say the fight was to happen between Jonas and Price, we were to have a quick breakdown of it. You've hit the nail on the head. Jonas is going to come swinging at her, put the aggression on, give her that first real test of her professional career. And it's a case of, will Lauren Price have the skills to get herself out of there? That's a tricky question. I don't think it's straightforward. I think you'd have to still favour Jonas at this stage with what the two of them have done professionally. But time is fizzling away here for Natasha Jonas, unfortunately. So maybe Lauren Price is going to get her at the right time. Really interesting fight if that happens.
I think it will happen next. I think that's the Sean hit the nail on the head. That's the reason these two are both on the same card.
Mm-hmm.
We're likely to get a face off, I think, as well at the end of the night. It'll happen next. And I think it's such an interesting fight. I've already told you what I think of Natasha Jonas. I've got just as much respect for Lauren Price's skills, but I think Natasha will try and old manner. No, I do. I think that'll be the game plan. They'll come out. I think they'll come out and they'll try and put it on her and try and rough her up, try and get her out of, because she gets into a groove. Lauren Price.
Yeah.
She boxes within herself a lot of the time, and I think they'll just try and make her feel uncomfortable, and then see how she reacts. I think it's a fantastic fight. Really interesting to see how it pans out. It's going to be one of those, old school versus the up and comer. I think it's brilliant. It's a brilliant narrative for the division. It's a brilliant narrative for British boxing. Is it a case of Natasha Jonas passing on the torch to Lauren Price? We'll see. Right, moving swiftly on to what I think might be an absolute barnstormer. Stevie McKenna to defend the WBC Inter Silverweight Super Welterweight title against current English champion Lee Cutler. This has warmed up nicely, hasn't it, Sean?
Yeah.
The way they've kind of gone back at each other in the weigh-in and the presser. Sorry, it's really, really interesting. Give me your breakdown of what you think happens here, bearing in mind what happened last time Stevie McKenna was out in that absolute fire fest with Joe Laws.
Yeah, I think Stevie McKenna's probably learnt his lesson there. I don't think he'll come out the same. I think Cutler will sort of impose himself on him a bit more than what Joe Laws did. And I think it's just an intriguing fight. Both have a bit of punching power. Both are good boxers. It's just a well-matched fight for both of them at this stage in their careers, I think. And ultimately, I think Cutler will just about come through on a close points decision.
Okay, I'm quite surprised you've said that, Harrison.
Yeah. What a fight that was last time out. Goodness, I actually,
crazy, mate.
Yeah, I watched it again the other day. It was probably my favourite 9 minutes of sport this year. It was absolutely brilliant stuff.
Me and Cole were ringside. We were up in Barnsley that night. We were ringside, and the crowd went absolutely batshit crazy.
And you know what? They had every right to as well. It's not like it's places like Barnes. They don't get big nights like that all too often, and it obviously takes someone like Callum Simpson to get them those big cards, and they deserve fights like that sometimes. We see these fights happen all too often in like a half-empty O2 or an MEN, and it's a bit disappointing. We had a nice crowd there, and it was just a really good moment for British boxing, in my opinion. I agree with Sean to some extent. Steve McKenna will have learned a lot in those 9 minutes, more than he would have. If people are expecting him to come out here like an absolute menace again, I'd be very surprised. Lee Cutler's been on a fantastic run. I do a lot of work on the Southern Circuits, and he's been flying. I think he's on 6 straight now since that Bradley re-loss down at Wembley a few years back. So, yeah, I can see why Lee Cutler's being given this opportunity. I don't think this is an easy fight for Steve McKenna at all, to be honest. He will be pushed here. It could be quite technical, to be fair, but like even McKenna, if he's not as aggressive, I say if he's not as aggressive, that's the norm to be that aggressive every single fight like he was last time out. If he's about 40% of that, it'll probably see him get a stoppage here, just because that power is just oblivious for a super welterweight as well. Like, he's got some hands on him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He is susceptible to a punch, yes, and Lee Cutler probably will get some chances to push on him. I'd be very surprised if this goes the distance, but McKenna will be a little bit more mature in his performance. I think he gets a late stoppage here. But if this was open in the card on Sky on Saturday, or if it's the second fight on, get your boxers on early, because this is a real good one.
It's an absolute great fight. And I think it's clash of styles. McKenna, like you say, he's got dynamite. 14 knockouts out of 15 fights. I agree with both of you that he isn't going to come out swinging. It's not the same fight. Joe Law's made him stand and trade.
Yeah.
That won't happen in this fight because Lee Cutler's not that type of fighter. Lee Cutler's a bit more measured. I saw the fight down in Brighton against a local lad and a friend of mine, Stanley Stannard. I spoke to Stanley a couple of months ago on a local show where he was back out again. He's looking for that rematch against Lee Cutler. That was a close fight. Lee's seems to have raised his game each time. I think is the best way to put it. The fight against Stan was for an eliminator for the English title. He then goes on to fight for the English title, wins that in a close fight. He just seems to do enough. He seems to get the measure of his opponent. McKenna is a different animal. And if he lands clean, we're going to see what Lee Cutler's all about in this fight. It's again a very interesting fight, but this for me could be fight of the night.
Sure. Really,
really looking forward to it. What happens next? If this goes according to Stephen McKenna's plan, where do you see him going from here?
I mean, there's no shortage, is there, of super welterweight fights to be had domestically. There's plenty of options out there for him. I mean, I don't know if McKenna wants to fight for the British title, being Irish. So I'm sure he would still happily take the opportunity. But it's a strange one, isn't it? Like, again, probably patience is going to cause for persistence here because the super welterweight division at the top level now, you've got Bud Crawford's there, Madrimov and Berenchek and like all these massive names. So obviously he's still got a long way to go to get to that stage. But there's plenty of good domestic fights to be made there.
Absolutely. Right. Moving swiftly on, lads, to the glamour of Monte Carlo. I've always sort of scratched my head thinking, why do Matchroom take shows to Monte Carlo? It's a very strange place to have boxing. I've got
a 2-word answer for you, Andy.
Go on then.
Site fee. That'll be why.
Yeah, no, of course, mate. And this one is more strange than any others because you've got a real mixture on this card. We're obviously just going to concentrate on the two fights that have UK and Ireland fighters in them. So we'll start with looks like top of the bill, and that's the dynamic Chev Clark. He's fighting for the EBU cruiserweight title against Leonard Mosquet. Chev Clark is doing some damage in this cruiserweight division. Harrison, come to you first. It's not going to be long before he's fighting for world titles, is it?
No, it really, really won't. It's not hard to get an opportunity at cruiserweight to become a world champion at the minute either. It's not a division, but obviously Jaya Pattaya is in the position he is. But he's likely to take some of Zerdo's titles sometime next year, and then one of them's going to get vacated. So yeah, he's not far off a world title at all. Perfect stance here for the European title as well, because the guy's fighting Leonardo Mosquea. You look at his record, and it really isn't that deep. He beat Dylan Bragon last time out, who obviously we're familiar with on these shows, but it took him a points victory to get that one over the line. So I don't know, the quality of the fighters he's been fighting in France. I don't think that's that good at the minute, personally. I may well get proven wrong, like the French so often seem to do to me. But I think Chev Clark's an absolute monster, isn't he? Like you want in your cruiserweight someone who can stand there and just throw some big punches. But also, you need to have more moving about you than a heavyweight, because obviously you're capsizing yourself at 14.5 stone. But Chevron Clark, he carries his weight brilliantly. His movement's good. His power is destructive. He's a really well-rounded cruiserweight, in my opinion. He claims the European title here in an absolute canter, in my opinion. He gets this done in 5 or 6 rounds and then defends it once, and then it's on to a world title shot. Surely, you can't hold. I don't think Eddie Hearn's going to hold him back for too much longer.
Sean, there's no glitz and glamour with Chev. He gets down, he does the business. He's a very quiet-natured fella. I've been around some fight weeks when Chev's been on the card. There's no airs and graces about Chev Clark. He gets his head down, he does his work, he gets the job done, and he moves on. But real dangerous for this cruiserweight division, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, he's probably one of my favourite British fighters. But for the reasons you just said there, Andy, he doesn't get the sort of fanfare or people speaking about him as he should, because he's a really good fighter. And it wouldn't be surprise me, sorry, if he becomes Britain's next world champion in the next sort of 6 to 12 months' time.
Okay, moving swiftly on to the Diva Gary Cully. Is in a 7-round lightweight fight against Maxi Hughes. Lots and lots of experience, Maxi Hughes, and the Divas trying to rebuild after that shock stoppage, not that long back. I'm a bit surprised that this is on this card and not on a big show in the UK or a big show in Ireland. I don't understand why it's out there, this one. It don't really make a lot of sense for me. Maybe they needed to fill the card and they wanted these guys out, and this is the way to go. Given Gary Cully's height and reach advantages here, Harrison, should he be coming through this fight? I mean, Maxi's had a twilight in his career, hasn't he? He's been in some really good fights and proving himself at a very good level.
Well, firstly, to your point, yeah, I agree that there should have been a fight that happened somewhere in the UK or Ireland, because they're just two big names, and like the likes of like Madliev and Beatrice Ferreira being on this card kind of makes a lot of sense because there's world interest there. It's Monte Carlo; they don't need to sell tickets, so to have two ticket sellers on a fight like this is a bit strange. But back to the fight, like you said there, he's got height, he's got reach, and if he uses both of those things, it's definitely Gary Cully's fight to lose, in my opinion. I think that the timing is right from this. Like we talked about, that shock, one of the biggest upsets in modern British and Irish boxing for some time, when he got stopped in Ireland. Took a little bit of time off, but since then he's had 2 fights, 2 good wins. Well, Reece Mold really made him work, but he just about did enough. And then Patera, I know, isn't at that level that he used to be, but he still looked good enough. I still want to see another level of improvement, to be honest, because Gary Cully, for the hype that he gets and the expectation, I just think he's still probably not hit that right level. I think his ceiling's higher than he's shown us so far, anyways. And Maxi Hughes, God, there's only so many superlatives you can use about him. I think hero is a bit one that comes to mind, really. He's tried. Obviously, that Cambosos fight happened, and it's a shame he didn't get the decision that night, but he's still powering on. He needs to win this, really, to keep going, and it's a big ask. It really is. I think Gary Cully will take this one on points.
Better late than never, young man.
I know. Sorry, I didn't realise. I just messaged Carl. I didn't know, because it weren't linked to the YouTube thing. I didn't know you was on.
Oh, is it not? Okay, I didn't realise that.
No,
I didn't realise that. Okay. So we're just talking about the Monte Carlo card. We're talking about Gary Cully, Maxi Hughes. Before I come to Sean, seeing as though you graced us with your appearance, let's see what you think about the fight.
I think it's. I think this could be a chaotic fight. I mean, it depends what you get from Gary Cully here. I think he'll try to probably keep Maxi Hughes on the end of a jab, move around the ring. I think Maxi Hughes will fight his usual fight, what he does. It all depends on what kind of fight I think Gary Cully wants to engage in here. I think it's like sort of how he adapts to how Maxi Hughes will come at him. I think that Maxi Hughes will beat Gary Cully. I think he'll beat him on points or stop him late. I just think that Gary Cully's a bit vulnerable on the whiskers. I don't think Maxi Hughes is a massive puncher or anything, but I think Gary Cully has showed his vulnerabilities before, and even in the last fight against Reece Mold, I thought he looked vulnerable again. So I think Maxi Hughes will beat him.
Sean, obviously Maxi Hughes and Reece Mold know a lot about each other. Spent a lot of time in camps together. They'll be sharing stories of what needs to be done in this fight. Do you agree with Darren, or do you agree with Harrison?
I think I agree with Harrison, but am I right in thinking that they're kind of using Maxi Hughes as a sort of step aside fight for Paddy Donovan, or is that someone else?
Harrison?
You asked the wrong man. I suppose it probably would be, yeah. I mean, I haven't heard Paddy Donovan get mentioned for anybody else. Lewis Crocker, I suppose, possibly, but obviously you'd have to go up a little bit of weight for him. It's interesting. I think Maxi Hughes has probably slipped into a really nice position here, hasn't he? I mean, whether he deserves an opportunity like this to be fighting in bloody France like this, that's a big ask, isn't it? But not to my knowledge, Sean. No,
Right.
That's not very good journalism, or
Maxi Hughes, in my opinion, deserves everything he's going to get for his last few fights in boxing, however long he's got left, after getting absolutely robbed. The Cambosis fight, he got absolutely robbed. Yeah. And he should have got a rematch. It was disgraceful. The fact that Cambosis has now gone on and got signed by Matchroom, I just don't get. I really don't understand it. I hope Eddie Hearn comes out. I hope someone has the balls to ask him why he signed him, because he's not done anything to warrant that. He's not shown that level that he had since the Tiafimo fight. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. And Maxi Hughes has been swept to one side and forgotten about, and again, bang out of order. He deserved much more respect and to be treated much better than he did. I would love to see, and this is no slight on Gary Cully, I would love to see Maxi Hughes win this fight, just so it gives him an opportunity for another massive payday. Gary Cully can come again. One question though, and I'll come to you, Darren. Gary Cully is absolutely massive at this weight. How long does he have left before he's got to consider moving? Because it must be killing him to make this weight.
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, let's see how he gets on here. It might even be after this fight that he changes, because I do agree with you. But I also, going back onto what you were saying as well, I would like to see Maxi Hughes win this too, because I agree with you that Gary Cully can come again. So I would like to see Maxi Hughes go on to win this fight. But yeah, you're completely right about the weight. It might even be his last fight at this weight, possibly.
The problem is, it's such a glamorous division. He's probably trying to hold out for a massive fight before he does move up. Obviously, the plan wasn't for him to get stopped and have to rebuild. The plan was that was going to be the big stepping stone fight, and he was going to move on from there. And obviously, that kind of put him off the tracks a little bit, and he's had to go down this route of rebuilding against a name in Maxi Hughes. And I'm sure they've picked Maxi thinking Maxi's not got the movement to deal with Gary Cully. I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure they're thinking that Gary will work sharp off that jab, those big ranging hooks, and do the damage to Maxi. So we'll see how it pans out. Moving swiftly on to another absolutely bizarre card. And we're only going to talk about one fight on this card. What the hell is this card all about? And why is Dillian Whyte on it? There's two questions I've got, and I'm going to come to you, Harrison.
Oh my God. What a weird little feature of a Saturday this is. Do you remember the last fight as well? He fought in Castle Bar in Mayo on a Sunday afternoon in a hotel in front of 200 people. And that's like an episode of Would I Lie to You, isn't it? It was the most astonishing thing ever. And this right behind it. And the guy he's fighting, I'm sure everyone has seen by now the clip of his last fight as well, where it was somewhere in Africa, I think, and the guy that he was fighting punched himself in the face and knocked himself out. And that's qualified him to fight Dillian Whyte in Gibraltar, of all places. This is like this. I don't know. It's like a comedy sketch, isn't it? It's very, very weird. Harry Hill will be eating this up, honestly. It's strange, isn't it? I mean, it's I think it's such a shame the way Dillian Whyte's career has gone the last couple of years. Okay, so there's the one side, obviously, with the drug tests and the B samples and stuff, and I've written many a piece on his situation and where he has to earn his respect back with British fight fans, but this isn't the way you go about it, because there's no profiling. It's very strange. And the weird thing is, he's not going to get paid to do it, is he? There's no way he's getting paid more than like 10 grand for this fight. I refuse to believe that there's enough money in a card like this for him to be going and fighting for for Saudi Arabian-esque money. Look, he can and probably will get himself back in the domestic picture, but it's kind of like when you take someone out of the sport for so long, where do you put them back in terms of like ranking and stuff like that? When Tyson Fury first came back, those first couple of fights that he had before the Wilder trilogy, you couldn't really rank him like 1 to 10, could you? Because you didn't know what status he was in. None of us can. You can't solidly put Dillian Whyte anywhere in your top 10s in terms of world heavyweights at the minute, can you? Because it's been so long since he's been in an active. I was actually at his last active fight was Jermaine Franklin, I think either 2 or 3 years ago in Wembley, and he's fallen off the face of the earth in the most dramatic of circumstances. So, look, he will obviously win this, but the question is then, where do we see him next? Is he going to sign back to a UK promoter? Is he going to go over to the States, try to get with Bob Arum or someone like that? It's a mess, isn't it? It's a funny old mess, this.
Sean, this is absolutely crazy. It's a Polish Boxing Union commissioned show. The promoter is a guy called Michael Ofo. You guys might know a bit more about him than I do. I've never heard of the guy. And apparently he's got his promotion is called Platform Sports. Anybody?
Not a clue.
Okay.
No.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm staggered. I'm staggered that even though he's had his troubles, even though he was meant to be facing AJ in that massive fight, the one that everybody probably wanted to see after the first, and it made perfect sense for him to be fighting AJ at that time. And obviously we got the situation with the drug fail, and then it all went quiet, and then you never heard from him. He didn't even do any interviews. He did absolutely nothing. He stayed out the public eye. And then he goes on this show, as Harrison said, in Ireland. I'm just staggered. And now you're getting him on this show under a Polish commission, no involvement from any British promoter. Doesn't look like any British promoters even the slightest bit interested in him. Sean, try and make some sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, I laugh because it's just so ludicrous, I'm afraid. And I think the even more astounding thing is DAZN have chose to broadcast it, which is just even more remarkable. So, yeah, it's just totally bizarre, totally odd. Dillian Whyte's going to win, of course he is. But he needs power. He needs someone behind him to put him back in the thing. I know he wants to go self-managed. I know he doesn't want to pay the fees to the promoters, but at the end of the day, he's going to have to if he wants to get back in with the likes of Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, Bob Arum. Even Turkey takes a cut, let's be honest. So he's going to have to swallow his pride, swallow his ego if he wants to get back to where he once was.
Darren.
Yep.
I don't think there's any way Dillian Whyte gets back to anywhere near the level he was at. To do that, he's going to have to take a massive, massive risk and be the away fighter against an up-and-coming star, and try and get a win where he's not expected to, and he'll do it not being the fighter for the promotion, which is absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know, like all you guys, this is just bizarre for me. I mean, I agree with what Harrison said. I can't see him getting more than 10k for this fight. I really can't, because of where it is, what the show is. I mean, the guy he's fighting got stopped in one round by Daniel Dubois, and he's 36 and he looks 56. So it's just not good at all. But I think eventually you might end up seeing something like a Dillian Whyte, Derek Chisora 3, something like that, when Derek Chisora bows out. I mean, I saw a little clip of Derek Chisora, I think it was yesterday, saying about, you know, his last fight in the UK, obviously he's welling, and then he's going on to Saudi, he's looking for a Saudi last fight. And he even mentioned about he's interested in fighting in Ngannou. He said he'd be interested in fighting Dillian Whyte 3. Surely
it was fighting with Froch.
That was it. Yeah, yeah.
I'll give my Nottingham boy a little plug on the show.
Well,
Not that he needs it.
I know, yeah. The way I look at it is, you know, after this, he's got to be going on to some kind of better payday at least, and going on to a fighting some name. I mean, you know, before this fight, it was Christian Hammer, and that was, where was that? I can't remember where that was now, but that was in front of nobody pretty much as well. He's got to get his career back on track.
He was in
and he's
Ireland.
Was it Ireland? And he's not going to get it back on track by fighting Tete in Gibraltar. That's for sure.
Mate, he's got no choice.
Yeah.
He's fighting Tete because that's the only fight for him, and that's sad. It's sad that he's not being given an opportunity. I mean, even a GBM Sport platform, and I like GBM Sport.
Yeah,
they're like the next thing from the bridge between small oil and TV promotions, aren't they? You know, they've got they've got the GBM, they've got the DAZN deal. Even having him on a show like that would be better for him than fighting on this.
Yeah, I completely agree. But he's got the platform, hasn't he? With GBM, it's DAZN.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, yeah, he's going to be seen. I mean, is there actually any way anyone can watch? I don't believe there is any way anyone can watch this fight, is there?
It's on DAZN, I think.
On DAZN.
Oh, it is actually on DAZN?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you think people will be tuning in?
Is it on DAZN? Is it on DAZN's main channel, or is it on some sort of bizarre YouTube thing?
No, it's Sunday afternoon, I think, on the main DAZN. Yeah.
Wow.
DAZN are probably paying more to get the rights for that than the fights actually worth, aren't they? Like, is it just going to be like one still camera in the crowd? Someone's recording on the right. This is live on DAZN.
Do DAZN care though, mate? You know, it's like
they're not asked.
It's awful, isn't it?
That's just
well.
Like,
Let's be honest.
You know how they say they promote? They have like, we have got over 200 fight nights a year. Basically, they've got to December and thought, fuck, we're 10 short. What can we do? Dillian White's fighting on a Sunday. Boom, there's one.
Well, it hasn't been plugged very well, has it? Because none of us knew, apart from Sean, it was on DAZN.
Yeah, I'm not going to be watching.
I believe it was announced on the fight a couple of weeks ago. It was done really oddly as well.
Okay.
The Terry Harper fight night, I think it was. I just randomly said Dillian White's return and in Gibraltar on the sort of whatever date it's on.
You know what? I think I remember him saying that, mate. Now you've said it.
I've seen a little advertisement on Instagram where they're selling tickets on there saying get your tickets now. And I'm like, can't see many Brits travelling over to Gibraltar to watch that fight.
Has it not sold out?
I wouldn't think so.
I feel for Dillian White. Now, all joking aside, this isn't a dig at Dillian White. This is a dig at the shambolic situation he's in. I feel for him because at one point he was on the verge. You know, he got that shot against Tyson and probably didn't do himself justice in it. And from that point, he's never been given another opportunity, really. He didn't do himself any favours with whatever happened with the drug test. Whatever happened, that didn't do him any favours, and it seems like his career's done. And Harrison, he's not a young man now.
No. Well, right. So see there, the way you say that it's not Dillian White's fault. I do think he has to take some accountability for what's gone on with status in his career, because for a fighter of his name and stature, he's not someone who has to fight to get on these big network shows. I'm really sure he would have had offers from Sky, BT, and everybody else about the potential of being on a card and fighting one of their top heavyweights like Fabio Wardley, he's good friends with him, but like, just anybody. Joe Joyce.
I'm not convinced, because I don't think Dillian White's scared to fight anyone.
No, he's fit. Look, honestly, he's one of my favorite fighters ever. I absolutely love him. But he's got a great attitude and he's very good. He's entertaining and he always gives good interviews. So, I don't know. There's two sides to it, and I just don't like. I think he has to take some accountability for how things have gone in the last 2 years. It's his decision to have this fight in Gibraltar in front of 4 people. You know, it's a shame, really.
I'm not convinced, mate. I think he's having to take fights where he can get them.
But why can't he fight in England? Like, why can he not fill up the copper box?
Well, he can if somebody offers him a fight.
But say he wants to do his own promotion. Like, say if Dillian White did his own promotion, had a couple like prospects on there that he's got signed to the card, he could get 3,000 in the copper box off his own name, sure.
He's got to have a promoter want to put him on though.
But sure, why can't he just promote the shows himself if that's the route he wants to go down?
Well, but you got to have a license to do that sort of stuff, Harrison. You can't.
Yeah. No, I get that, but like,
you can't just book an arena out and just
no, of course not. He's got to get a sanction and everything in between. But you're telling me that none of the big four in the UK want him?
But why is he on a no mark card in Gibraltar then? Why did he fight in front of 200 people in Ireland if one of the big TV promoters in the UK wanted him?
I think it's. Like I said, I think he's had offers. Like, Shorty Sauerland and Ben Shalom would have been there to say something to him like, we can get you on a Friday card. We can get you in front of X thousand in London. But they're clearly, like someone said there earlier about how he wants to do things on his own name and his merit. He refuses to work with promoters for one reason or another. He wants to build his own promotion and brand, sort of De La Hoya-esque. And I think it's just messed his career around a little bit too much, in my opinion. I just think he's wasting time. Like you said, he's a bit of an age now as well. Like the more and more he pisses about doing this, the less and less he's going to get a chance to be back in. Well, I dare say the world scene, but even domestically. Like, sure, if he got in with Fabio Wardley tomorrow, you'd probably pick Wardley, wouldn't you, based on the last 2 years?
Yeah.
How much of an influence has his brother had on what's going on recently, do you think?
Oh, Christ, don't get me started on him. He's a nutcase and all. Yeah, well, he's, if you're going to be loudmouth, it's kind of like the same with Big John Fury, isn't it? Like, you always know he's going to have some sort of ever-presence around Tyson's career about the decisions he makes, who he fights, where he fights, etc. And like Dill's brother is the exact same. Like, he's just he probably has got in the way too much. I can definitely see the angle you're coming from there.
Okay, watch this space. I won't be tuning into Gibraltar Airways. That's absolutely certain. Last topic of the night, lads, and it's changed a little bit from what I wanted it to be because of a social media message that was put out by Sky Sports a couple of hours before we went live. But anyway, originally the topic was going to be Chris Eubank Jr. and Ben struggled to agree a split, but it seems, according to Sky Sports, that at least Chris Eubank Jr. has agreed a 55-45 split in his favour. A little bit of context behind this. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was an interview earlier in the week with Eddie Earn. It was on the IFL. It was an interview between Eddie Earn and Eubank Jr.'s manager. Apologies, I can't remember his name.
I've seen that.
And there was basically they're arguing, bickering between each other, like school children. Eubank Jr. and his manager are obviously saying that they're the A side and they should be getting the bigger percentage. And Eddie Earn's going, well, Conor believes it should be 50-50. So, Sean, if this has been agreed, do you think it's right that it's 55-45? Number one. And number two, do you even believe that it's been agreed?
Oh, there's a question. Do I believe it should be 55-45? Potentially. Like it or not, Eubank Jr. thinks he's the big star in this fight, so that's why he's demanding that. If Conor Benn wants to fight him as badly as he does, I think he'll take that percentage. I'm being honest. I don't think that matters to him as much as the whole scandal that sort of followed him around. I think he just wants to give him a battering, to be honest. Do I think the fight will happen? No, yes, I do, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think it's going to drag on a bit more yet. Probably we'll have a few more bits of back and forth, and potentially early next year we'll get something in concrete around February, I think.
Harrison, my feelings on what I think about this fight. I've said I'm not going to watch it if it happens, and I won't watch it if it happens. But even I have to admit that commercially this is the biggest fight for these two?
Yeah, and it's the biggest fight in Britain. On the assumption that AJ and Fury was to happen elsewhere, this is the biggest fight that would happen in British boxing for a long, long time. And they kind of have a decision to make about where it's going to happen now, because like the way the O2 sold out, you'd be thinking if Wembley was free, surely you'd stick these two at Wembley and let them do it in front of 90,000, which they would sell out in an instant. So you're right, the commercial side of things is there. And people will look at the split and think, 55-45 should be an agreeable term. And maybe it is a fair split. And look, you've got to think of it this way. Say this is a £1 million pay-per-view and it sells out Wembley for another 4 or 5 million. They're both going to get paid. They're both going to leave millionaires if they're not already. So it shouldn't matter too much, really. But if you are going to put the split, like if you asked me what I thought the split would be, I would probably say just about around 55-45 to Eubank, or around 52-48. He's got slightly more commerciality. He's been at a slightly better level, I would suggest, than what Conor Benn has. Ben's been out of the ring for too long. He's lost the interest of a couple of fans as well, obviously, with his egg tactics. And it's interesting to see kind of if this fight happens, has it been agreed? Who knows? Look, the dads won't be helping either, will they? Because you know what Eubank's old man's going to be like. He'll be like talking about the sartorial elegance of a 55-45 split or some shit like that, and it'll drag on forever, won't it? Like you said. So, has it been agreed? I don't think so, but let's just hope it happens.
Do you think it happens next?
No, absolutely not. I think it depended on look. Say they went to the FA and they spoke to Wembley and they were able to sort something out for like mid-September after all the concerts, and they said that September the 14th was available. Yes, I believe that would happen, but whether those negotiations are in talks to happen, if Turki Al Sheikh's got his own interest in this and it ends up in Saudi Arabia, then it probably will happen next. But I don't think either of those things are liable to happen. So I think they both take one more fight each. Eubank needs the activity. Every time we talk about Chris Eubank, I'm always talking about the fact he has one fight and then you don't see him for a year. Like, he needs to stay consistently fighting. Conor Benn, likewise, obviously has had a couple of fights over in America, but it's been a good minute now since that second fight that he had. So I just don't like the inactivity of either fighter, personally.
Darren, is this all just bollocks?
It's been bollocks for a long time, to be fair. It's one of them where, with all the back and forth you've had, people think, no, well, if it's going to happen, just get it on. It's just, I get that the whole what they're doing at the minute still sells for them and builds it all up and that. But I think people are getting to a stage now where they're sort of like, just let us know when it happens type of thing. Obviously, the fairest split would be the 50-50. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. I would edge that Eubank, if it's going to be 55-45, deserves the higher. There's a lot of egos involved, and that's what it comes down to with the egos of them. Like, Eubank ain't going to want Benn to have more, and it's, vice versa. But going back to what Harrison said about the O2 and selling the O2 before and they could go Wembley, Eddie Ernest said it will be Wembley Stadium or Tottenham when it lands. He said it will be either of them stadiums, which they will both sell, no problem. But this looks like we could be back and forth for another good few more weeks yet, agreeing a split. But just let us know when it's on.
If that is the case, then that doesn't happen until the summer, does it?
I would probably. Well, Eddie's saying he wants it to be March or April next year.
That won't happen.
I would
March or April. I once thought.
Football season will still be on.
Yeah, he thinks it's he thinks that it's viable to do it at a football stadium. In one of them in March or April. Whereas for me, it'd be Wembley Stadium because Tottenham obviously we play.
Yeah, but you've got to think Wembley as well. You've got the EFL Trophy, the 2 FA Cup semi-finals, and then non-league football as well. Like from March onwards, Wembley is just impossible to get your hands on.
When was Klitschko and AJ though before?
That was at Wembley,
April.
But it was April. Like, it's just difficult to say. I mean, they'd have to work it around being before the cup semi-finals. Surely they just wait though, because if they announce it, say next week for April, you'd be much better wait until March February, March time for a September date, in my opinion. I thought, anyways, because it just sells that little bit better. But who knows?
Yeah. Was Usyk AJ in the football season when Spurs was on?
No, it was at the very start of the season, so Tottenham played away for the first weekend. Straight back.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't. We're all correct in saying it definitely sells.
Mm-hmm.
They probably wouldn't even have to stack the undercard that well because let's be honest, it's not hardcore boxing fans. All the casuals will come out for this one as well because of the names.
Guys, I'm going to be honest. I'm saying all this through gritted teeth. This topic's even on this channel through gritted teeth. I hate it. I hate it because it's not about these two and this fake hatred between each other. There's no background to it whatsoever other than the two dads hated each other and the two dads had two absolute barnstormer of fights.
Yeah.
Basically, their two dads were the poster boys for 90s boxing, and deservedly so. Two of the best British fighters of all time.
Yeah,
these two are not that, and they'll never be that. And it needs that narrative of Eubank v Benn to sell this fight. I get the commercial thing. They're being pushed by two massive promoters, but it's all about the fact that there's this Benn Eubank senior narrative. This is why you got not long ago that interview with Junior wanting his dad back in his camp, because without his dad being there, this fight makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you haven't got Senior in his corner and Nigel Benn in Connor's corner, it makes absolutely no sense, and it's worthless because it's you can just tell when they were in the ring not long back in Saturday, it was so fake. The anger and all that was so fake, but everyone will buy it. That's why I've put it on tonight.
So what do you reckon happens after the fight then? Do you reckon they shake hands and they're all hunky-dory again?
Oh, no. Connor will do exactly what his dad did, and he'll hate him. He'll hate Junior. And you'll probably get a second fight. Because it makes the most sense. These two fighters, I put a tweet out earlier on. These two fighters fight for money. They don't fight for legacy. They're never going to fight for legacy. They're not interested. It's all about the biggest fight they can make. Eubank Jr., I know what you're going to say, Harrison. Conor Benn might do. Eubank Jr. has had opportunities to fight for legitimate world titles against the very best. And he's not took them arguing percentages and arguing pay. He's not a legacy fighter. He's a money fighter. That's fact. History has shown that. Now, Conor Benn is a different level in his progression in his career. And obviously, everything that's gone off, you might have seen him fight for world titles. I mean, they're talking about Barbosa as his potential next fight.
For who? For what was that?
For Conor Benn. Is it
Mario Barrios?
Sorry, Barrios. Oh. So there's that potential there. Why? Other than the fact that it makes the biggest amount of money, it's obviously all about commercial, because these two, Benn's fighting well out of his weight class. I don't need to be telling you all this. It's obvious. Benn's fighting well out of his weight class. To then do that and then go back down is the biggest mistake he'll make in his career, because he won't be the same fighter when he goes back down to welterweight. We've seen that on more than one occasion in history.
Kell Brook, that's the big one.
Exactly that. Eubank Jr. will absolutely kill himself to make middleweight. And if they make it any less than 160, he's in danger. If they make it 157 like they originally did for that first fight, he's in danger. That's a very, 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 very dangerous situation for Eubank Jr. to be in. And that's what I don't like about this whole situation, is they're fighting completely out of the weight categories just to make the fight because it's their names.
Yeah.
That's what.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
That's Harrison. That is basically Harrison. That's why I don't want this fight to happen.
Absolutely valid. Like you make a really good point there about how this is a money fight. It's very remnant to me of what Mayweather and McGregor was. There was no titles on the line. There was no end goal ambition for either man. It was just, let's get this on. Let's get paid low and go into the sunset, like Floyd did. The only counter argument I think I'd make to you is that why wouldn't these two just fight for a load of money? Like, if you've got the name and the back end, the principle, just take advantage of it, really.
That's fine, but then don't pretend that you want world titles.
But they have to sell it, don't they? I mean, like, the only reason that, like, so for the sake of the background and everything, see if these two were all sort of hunky-dory with each other, shaking hands and saying, yeah, oh, his dad was a legend. Oh, no, your dad was a legend. They ain't going to sell. People just won't buy into the narrative then. It probably is forced hate, I'd agree with you, but it has to be there. Part of boxing is obviously it's the drama sport, and part of that, of course, sometimes is unfortunately acting. It just
what it does, the forced hate, what it does, it'll trigger something in fight fans of a certain age.
Sure, yeah, of course it does.
Mm.
You know, fight fans that were around in the 90s, my age or a little bit younger, that saw those original fights and the actual hatred, because it was actual hatred between definitely on Nigel Benn's side, he couldn't stand Eubank Junior. Eubank Senior. Eubank Senior, I don't think cared. I think he enjoyed getting under Nigel's skin. I don't think there was any hatred necessarily on his part. He was doing what he needed to do to win that fight.
I think we're seeing something quite similar here, though, and maybe again that is the base narrative. But I think Eubank Junior actually quite enjoys winding up Conor Benn with certain things that he says and the way he is. But I think that's just the family. Like, the Eubanks are famously known for acting like this, and that's what's going to end up selling this fight, unfortunately. And look, back to the whole original topic of the money and the split. The literal split of the 55-45 is being done now based on where those two are in their careers. I think we'd all be quite unanimous on that.
Yeah.
If it goes 50-50, is everyone going to go, oh, that's a disgrace, this fight shouldn't happen? No. Most fight fans don't particularly care about splits and things like that. It's up to these two now to get some sort of figure sorted and get this fight on. But like Darren said there, it's very boring repetitively talking about two fighters who don't actually fight. It's very frustrating, really. So if they don't fight each other like next, I want to see both of them out in the first quarter of next year, and then we'll talk about this fight hopefully happening in the summer.
Sean, you've obviously see Eubank around town. I think you said on one of our shows just recently that he's kind of putting his face out there a bit more than he has done in recent times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's no coincidence. It's with this in mind, to be honest. So, yeah, I think we'll eventually see the fight. The split, I agree, probably edge towards Eubank if someone was going to get the higher percentage. But, yeah, I agree with everything you've all said, really, about as to why the fight's happening. I just think with Eubank as well, I don't think he ever had the ability to win the world title, but I would have liked a challenge and in particular fight in Brighton, something he's always spoke about. He's always wanted to be affiliated with the football club, and he goes around wearing Man United shirts and everything. So I think he's always been a bit bitter that Harlem's a sort of chosen boxer for Brighton. So yeah, there's a bit of that of it involved as well.
I was thinking before we came on here of what had happened in negotiations if Chris Eubank ever got a Canelo fight. I actually deep down believe that Chris Eubank would go into that fight thinking he's the A side.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the fight again, just like the Gennady Golovkin fight, the fight wouldn't happen because he wouldn't be getting paid enough, even though he'd probably get a couple of million for fighting him in Texas. Absolutely bizarre. Anyway, this will rumble on. I'm sure when this fight eventually gets made, we'll talk about it a bit closer to the time. I think that's a good place to bring the show to an end, guys. Thank you very, very much for joining as always. It's an absolute pleasure having you on. It's nice that we think differently on certain topics, though, boys, because otherwise it'd be boring.
Yeah.
That's what boxing's about. It's all about opinions. It's all about looking at things from different angles. I've got my old school looking at it from the legacy side and wanting all the glamour and glitz of world titles to be the only thing that matters in boxing. And Harrison being a much more of this generation can see the commercial side much more than me. And it's good to have that distinction between the two. But anyway,
I guess you could call it a new head of hair, Andy.
yeah, that'd be the one, mate. Other than this bad boy. Thanks again, boys, for being on. It's always a pleasure. This has been Last Bowl Boxing. We do this on a Thursday night every single week, and sometimes on a Sunday. We may do one this Sunday talking about the fights that have gone on this weekend. We are proudly sponsored by LW Liftings and S&C Travel. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.